normally think of as inside and outside.
Great. Yeah, and just to go along with that, I read your book, Painting and Consciousness, and it's available for purchase here after the show if anyone's interested. It's a really interesting book, so thank you for writing it. And you say in your book that for the painter, there is, quote, a happening as we are looking outside, an experiment of space occurring within us, within our body, end quote. So I really love that quote, and I think it sort of describes this experience that you're having as a painter, or even we can extend it to an observer experiencing the painting as we walk through the gallery, walk through the exhibition tonight. But I don't know if you want to elaborate on that experience.
Sure. I mean, we take it, we seem to take it for granted in a way. We look at paintings and paintings, representational paintings, they're space. Maybe it's a landscape, but we're looking into the vista, or in this case, we've got rooms and we're looking into the space of the room. And we know that there's no real space, and we're looking at a canvas and it's flat. And yet, if we're being receptive to the painting, if the painting's well put together, we have some kind of experience of space. Well, where is that space? How is that experience of space happening? It's inside us. Well, that's curious all by itself. It's like, what? How is that? So I'm interested in what is the nature of that space, and what else is going on there.
I turned it off for a second. And it seems like here within the chosen works for this exhibition, we're really drawn to, I was fascinated really with the changing perceptual field that we see. So we're looking at the same space, this assemblage of a director's chair, 2 armchairs, a stool, but we experience that same space so differently as we go through the show and experience different perceptual fields. There's an experience of softness and ghostliness almost in some of your paintings of that space, whereas some of them feel very passionate and maybe even angry. And I thought, I wanted to talk about this idea of repetition and iteration and how that sort of informs your work in this exhibition. But I think it's so fascinating to come back to the same space, but view it so differently in all these manifestations. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Sure, yeah. There's something about repeating a motif, getting to know it, doing it over and over again, allowing for a kind of familiarity and then a kind of intimacy, and it opens and it gets interesting. And I find myself also being interested in different kinds of playing, I guess. Like, okay, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna respond this way now, pretty straightforward with the tones that I see, or I'm gonna do black and white now, or I'm gonna just mark in relation to what I see and hardly change the tone at all, and it turns into a color field painting, but I'm really experiencing and working from observation. So all of those ways are, I find it interesting, and it, I like to play in different ways, but it's also a different kind of discovery of my experience of space. And then what happens when I juxtapose those different versions together and I look at them on the wall together, and then this whole unexpected thing happens when they're next to each other. And what happens as I go from one to the next in terms of my own experience of space in between the images.
Cool. Do you think your experience is what you want people who observe your artwork here in this exhibition to be? Is it the same experience that you have? Or what experience do you want your audience to have? Or maybe that's just a personal.
No, that's fine. That's a legitimate question. I think I would like my audience, my viewer, to enjoy slowing down and having a sense of rapport with the image, the painting, and through that experience with the painting, feel themselves, so that it's like they're inside, like I was talking about, like I guess, yeah, but it's their inside, it's not my inside, it's their inside in relation that somehow gets clarified as they're standing with the painting. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a process of opening, or a process of maybe even opening your consciousness as you go through the show.
Yeah, like, and that consciousness is open. It's more like a dropping away of all the stuff, all the daily stuff. And so then what's just there is open. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And just to say at the end, so if you got the chance to enjoy the show before the talk, if you didn't, then please do it after the talk. But as you go through the show, you can see the chairs that are in a grouping slowly change their formation, and especially the director's chair. So I find this really interesting symbolically, and I'd like to talk about that next. But the director's chair slowly rotates outward, and at the end, it's an invitation, kind of like what you're talking about, for the observer to be open to the painting and have an opening of consciousness, if that's correct. So the ending of the show has the director's chair that's facing outwards. It's facing the observer. It's an invitation to join and to have your own perceptual consciousness or a journey within the paintings themselves. Perhaps. That's my take.
Yeah.
That's one take.
That works. I mean, I don't think of it.
That's the narrative arc.
I don't think of it as
that narrow.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm just, I want to move the chair around because I painted it this way. And let's see what happens if I paint it that way. But it does feel very different when I'm looking at the back of the chair, or I'm looking at the front of the chair, and I can see, oh, this does function like an invitation, or this does function like I'm looking over something that I'm on the outside of it, and those are very different experiences. And at some point along the way, I mean, I've been working with these chairs, this cast of characters for a long time, and at some point it did occur to me, oh, this is a director's chair.
Yes, let's talk about the director's chair. I think there's a lot there, Jordan. We can suss that out for hours. I think, when I think about the director's chair, I'm thinking, of course, of the history of motion pictures. And I think that, historically, it's interesting because you are a painter, you're working with the pictorial art that's this is a still life, these are still lives that you're painting. However, you talk about infusing your painting with a vitality and movement. And you can see that in the work. You can see through your markings, you talk about the process of marking as an intentional way that you paint. And when you do that type of marking, you are infusing the paint with motion. And so I think it's really interesting that the chair that has been the most important of all these chairs in these works is a director's chair, which points to a motion picture, vitality, movement. And I thought maybe we could just talk about that for a little bit.
So I'm not.
Also, you call your chairs your acting troupe,
Yeah.
which is this
Well, that's
very
true.
theatrical
That is true.
resonance to it.
Yes. I do.
Your protagonists.
Yes, they are. They are my acting troupe, and I do think of it in some way like a scene set, as I'm setting it up, and I want it to look like a domestic scene, but it's never really. Actually, no, when I was in my house, it wasn't. I didn't live in that space. I was painting it. But I don't think so much of motion pictures or film, although I do think of the scene, and I am aware of chairs as places for people that aren't there, that may come there, maybe left. And there's something about the director's chair that seems to direct me as I'm looking from one chair to the next. The way, it's often like a triad, they're dynamic. Sometimes there's the stool, and there was a period of time where I think there were 5, 6 chairs, 5 chairs, 7 chairs. I mean, kind of had this thing going on, maybe it was 5 chairs. Anyway, there's something about the director's chair that seems to, the way the direction it's facing seems to sort of get the movement or catalyze movement in some way, something like that. But there's also something about the director's chair that I found interesting, that it's both structure, it's a chair, but a lot of empty space too, right? We're looking through all the parts of it. It's like it's open.
Right, you've called it your framework.
Oh.
The chair's
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
I can quote you.
Yes.
So, I think it's even thinking about sort of just the symbolism of the chair. Once, historically, the chair symbolized the seat of authority, ecclesiastical authority. But now the chair has become something of just a functional, very humble object that we use every day. I think it's interesting to think about all those different things as we think about your paintings, and also just the absence of the human body. And what does that mean? But lots to talk about, and I'm just looking at the time because I want to respect that. It's already 7:23, so it's time to open up to your questions. So please, feel free. Yes, go ahead.
So I'm not getting paid to say this, but Jordan is a wonderful teacher. Yeah, really wonderful. I'm one of his disciples. So when we used to paint, we used to put music on. So when you paint, you do the same, and that brings you the energy to paint, say, the red one with lots of vibrant marks.
When I paint with music. And if it's not, if the music doesn't fit, I'll change the music until I get the right music, and it amplifies.
It's not the other way around.
No.
is it?
No, it needs to amplify where I'm at, and if it's not, then I'll change the reason. And sometimes it'll just be the same track over and over and over.
It's about like going to a psychiatrist and keep on changing until you find one that works.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions?
Hi, Jordan. Did you decide to do this series, or did it just kind of happen?
It just happened. I mean, it just, I didn't think, okay, I'm gonna paint some furniture now for the next 25 years. But I knew when I started to paint interiors, there was really something there for me. The way an interior, a room, holds space, I found very compelling. Conjuring space on a flat surface is a thrill. It's like, wow, there's space. And it's like, okay, let's do that. And then there's windows and light coming in, and then there's the chair. I mean, it just kept going from there. But yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of it was a delight in the surfaces and all of the effects of the light and that sort of thing, playing around with that. At what point did, probably was a moment where it was like shifting gears, but like at what point did it become more of a personal exploration than, oh, I'm interested in painting how this room is changing?
It was always also personal engagement. I think painting was always that for me. I think that's what kept me painting, was that it felt real in that way. It felt like, oh, I'm here when I'm painting. So it was never removed in just like a formal question.
I'm going to give you the microphone back, but I have one more. I'm so sorry. When you look at each painting, can you remember exactly how you were in that moment? Is it like an emotional snapshot for you?
They're not emotional in that sense. They're more, but they are particular times, for sure. But when I paint, I don't think of the engagement particularly in emotional terms. They're felt, but feeling is much more than just the emotional range.
David.
Hi, Jordan. So first of all, congratulations, and congratulations, Christina. I see a lot of on your paintings movement. I see a lot of movement. Do you connect this to time? Do you can you talk a little more about that space? Love to hear, particularly on the graphite and the charcoal paintings. I see moving chairs in some way, and I would love to know if there's kind of some time connection.
So, I think perhaps the first thing is I like to move when I'm working. I stand, if the music is good, I'm moving around, I'm dancing, I'm gesturing, and there's something about marking and using my arm and the rhythm and the marking that I enjoy. And I'm exploring the motif that I'm looking at, and I can see as I'm moving, there's a development of the space getting conjured over time. And so the drawing or the painting ends up being a kind of a artifact of a kind of discovery of the space over time. And I enjoy that. I think and it's a pleasure to make it that way. You know, sometimes I want to work and I'm, you know, maybe a little slower, and then other times like, oh, you know, I crank up the music and I'm listening to Coltrane or whatever it is, you know, and it's, you know, going. So, and that's part of what ends up happening with the material of the paint as well. And so, but paint, in some ways, it's harder to maintain that kind of aggressive mark with paint because it keeps on layering. With a drawing, it's open that way.
Hi, Jordan. Hey, so you can see the kind of, I don't call it a transition, but you have where there's identifiable interiors and then you move to like a complete kind of abstract field painting. Can you describe that transition or those differences in those paintings and how does that happen?
Okay. So it gets back to space. And I guess in a way I'm sort of in love with space. Just the experience of space and conjuring it on a canvas. And there's something in the experience of space, I'll call it presence, and it's interesting for me to try to conjure that without the usual suspects available. So what happens if I just respond to my experience of space directly without describing anything in particular, although my seeing is particular, my mark is particular, but I'm not breaking things into this shape, this value, this edge. It's just I'm seeing space. And somehow something arrives through that engagement, and I don't understand it, but it feels very real to me. So there are times when I want to respond in a more representational way. I want that. It's like those black and whites. There's the one on the left, and it's very, clearly representational, and where the furniture and what's where. And then there's the one over there on the right, and it's much more like this. I don't know how to describe it. First.
Well, unfortunately, our time is up already. It went by really fast, but I welcome you to stay and mingle and enjoy the artwork here, enjoy the show, enjoy the space, and bring your friends back if they couldn't come tonight. And I just wanted to remind you that the exhibition runs till March 1st, so it's here for a while, which is wonderful. And yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. And also there are catalogs of the show for purchase outside with an original essay that I wrote on Jordan's work.
It's really a good essay.